I'm going to go over personal pronouns, reflexive pronouns, and possessive adjectives, and go over the quiz that y'all have on Canvas and translating all of the words in bold, which are those personal pronouns, reflexive pronouns, and possessive adjectives. So, over here on the left-hand side of the board, we have them all written down. Now, there are three persons, first person, second person, third person, and these are the personal pronouns, which, of course, would be in the singular of the first person, I and me, depending upon whether it is a nominative I, or objective, accusative me. And then making that plural, it would be we and us. Likewise, in the second person, you and you. You is used both as a subject and as a direct object. And then, of course, the plural, y'all and y'all. Note there's only one column. That's because the first person, these forms could be all three genders. These could be all three genders as well. Third person, like in English, you have he and she and it for the singular. And then him and her and it for the singular objective or accusative, and then of course in the plurality they, and they, and for the accusative objective you have them, and them. Nevertheless, you also have the reflexives. Reflexive pronouns are those pronouns that are going to always reflect back onto the subject, and as such there is no nominative that is here, nor is there a nominative in the plurality. Sui, sibi, say, himself, herself, itself, or themselves, if it were in the plural, but up here only himself, herself, itself. Please note the color scheme. If it is blue, it is a personal pronoun. If it is red, is it a reflexive pronoun? And if it is purple, it could be either. So all these words that you see in purple here and here, you only know if it is a personal pronoun or reflexive pronoun by looking at the subject. If the word indicates the same person as the subject, it's reflexive. So, he loves me, it loves me, they love me, y'all love me, but I do not love me. Since may would refer to the same as the I, it is I love myself. And likewise for all of those and all of those. So, let's take a look. And near to the end of the forms that are here, we will also point out the possessive adjectives. Mei, tui, nostrum, vestrum, not going to show possession. Instead, to show possession, you use the possessive adjectives. So it is not the tie of me, but rather I would use an adjective and say, my tie. It is not the book of you, but you would use an adjective and say, your book. Now, as in the third person can mean his, her, or it, but it's somebody else. If you want to indicate the same as the subject, you use the adjective suus aum, which means his own, her own, and its own, as opposed to his dog, somebody else's, her dog, somebody else's, its dog, somebody else's. So in Latin, when you say, he does not like his dog, in English you don't know whether it's he does not like his own dog, or he does not like his neighbor's dog. But in Latin you will, because if it is he does not like his neighbor's dog, eis, somebody else. But if it is he does not like his own dog, suus aum, which would be his own dog. So, let's take a look at the sentences here. Necessitas nobis in classe sedere. Nobis, we can look over in the chart and see that it is a first person, plural, either dative or ablative. So either to us or for us, or by, with, because of, from, in, or at us. So when we translate, it is necessary for us. It's our dative of reference to sit in class. And so therefore, for us, from the chart. Number two, Marcus mihi. Now mihi, like nobis, is purple. And so we look to see, is the mihi referring to the same person as the subject? No. Marcus is our subject. And so Marcus was showing the horses to me. And it would only be, if it were to myself, I. I showed the horses to myself, but it's not I, it's Marcus. Now, this is a ditransitive verb, which means that it is a verb that will have a direct object, show the accusative direct object, to the dative indirect object, which is the receiver of that direct object. Cornelia does not want to sit near you. Again, te is purple on the chart, but since it is not referring to the same person as the subject, Cornelia, then obviously it's you instead of yourself. And it is the accusative, to be te, object of the preposition prope, which requires it. Sextus always annoys her. Third person, pronoun of the feminine, her. Now, if it were referring to a carriage, like a ride-on, it could be an it, but here we are assuming it's a person, her. Cornelius was shouting, and the slaves did hear the voice of him, his voice. Eus is from our chart, Eus, and it's not referring to the slaves, but somebody else, Cornelius, the voice of him, his voice. Number 6. Number 6 we see are reflexive for the first time. And again, the way you're going to know whether translated as himself, herself, itself, or themselves is look at the subject. So since it is a subject, Aurelia saw, did see, perfect stem, perfect ending, herself in the water. And so it is herself. Number 7, ego is unnecessary. As that, whenever you have it, it just is going to emphasize I. Because when we look at our verb, weedy, it ends with an I, it, perfect ending, and it tells us the subject. So when you have it there, it is just merely emphasizing. I saw. Now may is accusative, it's the direct object. It is purple. And since the may refers to the same as the subject, I and me are the same person, then here it is reflexive. So you cannot say I saw me in the water, but rather I saw myself in the water, Aurelius said. Again, himself, herself, itself, or themselves. The dogs hurl, and since it's dogs, plural they, it's the dogs hurl themselves out of the door of the inn. And so here, since it's referring to the subject plural, that is plural themselves. Number 9. We have both ego, again, which is unnecessary because your verb deity already has built into it the ending I subject. But, again, I gave flowers. Me is purple over here, so it's either to me or to myself. But since it refers to the same person as the subject, it is reflexive. So I gave flowers to myself because no one of the others, we in English would say no one else, gave flowers. Since the me, he here is not the same as our subject, he, she, or it, the nobody, then it is not reflexive. Reflexive here, myself, to myself, obviously. And over here, no one else gave flowers to me. Not reflexive, because it's not referred to the same as the subject. Nos, nobis, and nobis in this sentence. So, sprung along. Nos can mean we or us. You see it over here in the nominative we and in the accusative us. So we have to figure out, is our verb going to have a ending that would indicate we? And when we see it does, dicimus from dico, dicere, dixi, dictus, we know that it is we always talk, speak about, since it is the same as our subject we, it is we always talk not about us, but we always talk reflexively about ourselves. But it is necessary, now it's not reflexive, for us, about ourselves, dative for us, also to talk about others. So don't be egotistical. Notice again, either we or us. Our verb ending, however, indicates not a we, so it is going to be the accusative us. Not the same as the subject, they, which are the dogs. The dogs saw us under the tree. Us. Vos, nos, eos. You can see them over here in the chart. Vos, nos, eos. All accusative direct objects. Yesterday, we saw y'all. Not yourselves, but y'all. Today, y'all saw us. Not ourselves, because not the same as the subject, not the same as the subject, not reflexive. And tomorrow, we will see them, the third person that we talk about. Moving on to number 13. Non me videt, sed ego eum vidi. So, he, she, or it, he did not see me. Not myself, but me, since it's not the same as the subject. But I, which again is unnecessary because you have E, but I saw him, which of course is accusative masculine. Number 14, he will give flowers to me. The only person that could give flowers to myself would be an I, but that's a he, or she, or an it. So he or she will give flowers to me, not to you. So these are personal pronouns because they do not refer back and reflect back onto the subject, which is a different thing altogether. So, is it his horse? No, it is his horse. Now how can this be? This one is letting you know, is it his, somebody else's, the neighbor's horse? And you answer no. It is his, as in his own horse. So whenever you use the pronoun, as, it refers to somebody else. And whenever you use the possessive adjective, it refers to his own, her own, its own. And so, is it his horse? No, it's his horse. His, somebody else, the neighbor's, versus his own horse. 16, Marcus gave flowers, eis, dative plural, to them. Dated is a ditransitive verb, and it will have both a direct object, flores, in the accusative, and an indirect object, dative, receiving that direct object. Then he gave flowers. Sibi is reflexive. You can see it. Sibi, say. So since it refers to the same as he, referring to Marcus, then he gave flowers to himself, which is reflexive to the same subject. The girls are in the country house. That A should actually be long as an ablative. There, I saw them. The accusative, eos, that one sees in the plurality. Now, number 18. Is a id. Translated as he, she, it does something verbs. Of him, of her, of it. To him, to her, to it. Subject verbs him, subject verbs her, subject verbs it. By, with, because of, from, in, on, at. Him, her, it. They, verb, do something. Of them, of them, of them. To them, to them, to them. Subject verbs them, subject verbs them, subject verbs them. And by, with, because of, from, in, on, at, them. So here is the he. He loves her. Personal pronouns, third person. She does not love him. The girl loves himself, herself, itself, herself, because it reflects back onto the subject. Mayhem. Now starting at 19, we're starting to see some of these possessive adjectives. Remember that meus is not the same as the pronouns. These are adjectives. So it says, I have my book. My own book. You have your book. And he has his book. She has her book. But it's not his as in his neighbor's book, somebody else's book. He has his own book. If it were from is id, as, that would be he has his as in somebody else's book. But when you use suus it says his own, her own, or its own, referring to the same as the subject. Marcus, yesterday, spoke, did speak, dico, dicere, dixi, dictus, to the friend. But it's to-o, from to-us, to-a, to-um. He spoke to your friend, your own friend. Marcus spotted his dog in the field. Now, is it Marcus spotted his dog as in Marcus's own dog? Or is it somebody else's, the neighbor's dog? Su'um tells me that it's his own dog. So Marcus spotted his dog in the field. He did not spot his dog. Translated the same way, his dog, but in Latin, suum lets me know that it is his own, referring to Marcus, versus as always refers to someone else's. He did not spot his, the neighbor, other person's dog. Yesterday, I saw horses in the fields. Westros, from wester, westra, westrum. It translates as your, but more than one. So we can say in our colloquial English of Georgia, y'alls's. Yesterday, I saw y'alls's horses in the fields. Y'all's own horses in the field. So y'alls's, or your, which would be correct English. 23. Nostra. from noster, nostra, nostrum. Our. Our country house is big. An adjective modifying wheeler. Omnes discipuli. All the students saw the teacher in the class. Suus, sua, suum. Up here, in the singular, his own, her own, its own. In the plural, their own. And because our subject is students plural, it would be their own teacher. Now, why is suum singular? Because it's only one singular teacher. For an adjective to modify a noun, it has to have the same case, number, and gender. Number singular, number singular. So all the students saw not his teacher, not her teacher, not its teacher, but their teacher. And it was their own teacher. It's not like they're looking across the hall and seeing their somebody else's. If it were their somebody else's, you would have used aorum, aorum, aorum. Words in blue refer to someone else, not the same as the subject. So we know that it is the students saw their own teacher. The boys did not give, dodari dedidatus, perfect tense, flowers, sibi, himself, herself, itself, or to themselves. Since it's boys, and it's reflexive, plural, it'd be sibi, themselves. The boys did not give flowers to themselves. Emo, on the contrary, to girls. Implied, did they give those flowers? Now, 26, 27, 28, and 29 are difficult. So let's make sure we pay close attention to them. Now, in addition to the words that are up here, there is another chart that is similar to ile, ila, ilud. Yeah, there we are. Nope, that's not the one I want. So, that one is. Instead of ile, ila, ilud, ilias, 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 ili, 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 and so forth and so on, there is ipse, ipsa, ipsu. Now these are various difficulties for students because, just like the reflexive pronouns subi, sibi, say, you can translate these as himself, herself, itself, and even themselves in the plural, ipsi, ipsi, ipsa, but instead of reflexive, these are intensifying adjectives and will modify stuff with the same case, number, and gender. So if I were to have here, amo ipse, that ipse can mean I myself love. If it were ipse amas, you yourself does the loving. And he himself does the loving. And so in that way, it does have the translation of myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, y'all selves, themselves. But instead of reflecting back like a pronoun does, this is an adjective that will agree in case, number, gender, and intensify. So let's look at the examples that I have given. And this is the difficult part. Students would look at ipse amat and translate, he loves himself. But no, ipse is nominative, modifying the subject, and so it's not saying he loves himself, but rather he himself does the loving. Say, on the other hand, is reflexive. And say does say, he loves himself. There's a huge difference. He himself does the loving versus he loves himself. Then I combine the two, and I say he himself loves himself. So ipse, an intensifying adjective, say, a reflexive pronoun. And he, she, or it loves herself. And thus it is intensifying our understood object, her, herself. Lastly, whenever you have a form of is, a, id, and it is not standing by itself, it is not a pronoun, but it can be turned into an adjective and modify something with the same case, number, and gender. When that happens, is, a, id, and all of these forms convert in our understanding in English as though they were a form of hic, hike, hook, this and these, or ele, ela, elud, that and those, and it is your choice as to which one you want it to be. So here you see eam modifying puellam. So it is not I love her, the girl. Now if the girl was not there, it would say that. I love her, and it would be a pronoun. But since it is modifying girl, it turns into a demonstrative. And it is your choice as to whether you want to say I love this girl or I love that girl. Same exact situation. If the word girl was not there, you would say she is a, id, he, she, it, is pretty. But since it modifies Puella, you simply say this girl or that girl. Again, when is a, id modifies a word as an adjective, it's the equivalency of being a hick like hoke, this and these, or to lay a lot lud, that and those. Dallas beats geta. If the word stick were not there, it would just be -o, the pronoun with it. But since bachalo is there, that it modifies, then again, it's as though it turns into a hick hike hoke form, modifying bachalo, hoke, or a lud form, modifying bachalo, illo. Dallas beats geta with this stick. Dallas beats geta with that stick. And then the last one. Marcus wants to give flowers. Without the word girls there, it would just simply be to them, the pronoun personal. But since girls is there, and a's is modifying it, then it would be saying that Marcus wants to give flowers to these girls or to those girls. When is a id modifies, when it modifies, when it modifies, when it modifies, it is as though, and it is your choice as to whether you are wanting it to say this or these, or that or those. It's like it becomes a form of either hick hike hoke or a lud. So hopefully this short video, 20 minutes or so long, can help you get a 100 on this quiz. Thank you so much.